Okay, I'm going through excuses for not keeping the Sabbath that so many religious people have. In fact, I'm sure you've got a whole pile of them. You know, send me yours. I would like to tear each one apart as I'm doing now. You know, today there's 567 excuses for not keeping the Sabbath. By tomorrow, there'll be about 680 out there. Excuses for not keeping God's holy seventh-day Sabbath, which is Saturday. Now, this one is referred to as Paul's teaching on the Sabbath. In other words, people will take this and they'll say, well, this is what Paul taught about the Sabbath day right here. And he was referring to it as weak and beggarly and no good at all. Well, let's take a look at Galatians 4 and verse 9. It says, but now after that you have, Paul is talking to Gentiles here. He says, but now after you have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements wherein you desire to be in bondage? You observe days and months and times and years. I tell you, the kahunas of some of these preachers who get up here and say, well, you see, God was saying that the Sabbath day and the holy days are weak and beggarly. It wasn't worth the soapstone it was written on. God should have never wasted his breath with those old holy days and Sabbath day. I mean, that's what these preachers are saying. They actually refer to this scripture of these Gentiles returning to and observing days and months and times. They're trying to say that that's a reference to God's holy days and Sabbath day. It's amazing. I mean, it is amazing. You know, these people keeping the Sabbath days and the holy days are weak and beggarly because they're trying to obey God. No, you want to be strong, don't obey God. Come up with your own belief system. Come up with your own day of worship. Come up with your own pagan holidays like Christmas. That's more godly, yeah. Right. I tell you, it is amazing. Now listen to me. Let's understand what Paul was talking about. The people he was talking to were Gentiles. They were pagan to the core. Okay? Up until this point, they had never kept the Sabbath and the holy days. They worshiped astrology. They did observe days and months and seasons. Again, this is a pagan Gentile people, and what Paul is saying is don't return back to your pagan practices where you are in bondage to your ignorance. That's what Paul is referring to. Again, they did worship astrology and days and seasons and times, and he's saying don't return back to that. Paul would have never referred to the Sabbath day as bondage. I mean, bondage is working 7 days a week. The Israelites were slaves for over 400 years. They worked 7 days a week, okay, making bricks. And God comes along and says, I'm going to give you, he reinstituted his Sabbath day. I'm going to give you a day off. You're going to go from working 7 days a week, and now I'm going to give you a Sabbath day, the seventh day of the week. And you're going to get to take a day off. None of those Israelites said, well, that's bondage for me to keep the Sabbath. It's a day off. That's bondage, man. That's bondage. I don't want no bondage, man. That's a break. You know, it's a day off. Nonsense. Nonsense. No, I mean, this scripture is totally taken out of context by preachers who try to say that Paul is referring to God's Sabbath and God's holy days as weak and beggarly. Let me tell you something, preacher boy. You're going to answer to God for that one.
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.